Hello. Uh, Hi. Let's start. So, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining. Uh, so, this is UX Talk, Season 3. Uh, just requesting, just mute your microphones and so let's enjoy today's talk. So, we have a very special guest today. And today's talk is very different topic, and I hope a lot of takeaways today you all participants will have. So before we move on our topic, just give me 2 minutes to explain what is UX Talk is all about. So UX Talk is a platform which we started. Everybody in COVID situation and uh, so everybody in pandemic and so everybody at work from home, stuck at home, and we started this platform. And season 1, season 2, we are very interesting speaker from globally. We have audience. Now we have season 3. Hope now pandemic situations will get over and we have go back to our routine. Yes, so UX Talk is about, it is a design community. It is where we discuss and try to get knowledge or share knowledge. This is something idea behind UX Talk. Uh, I personally believe everyone's journey is inspirational for everyone. And nowadays, in our day-to-day professional life, there is no one to follow and so on. So I try to bring such speakers, and these are professionals, so that we can share and we can take inspiration from this very successful professionals. And hope today also we have very fantastic speaker. And so my name is Tushar Deshmukh, and I'm a founder and CEO of a UX expert. Also, I have a mentoring platform. Last 22 years, I'm doing this design and UX related activity. So I think it is enough for me. Now let's come to our today's speaker. That is, today we have a Nadia. She's all the way from US, and uh, her experience is very, I will say, huge experience in a UX field. She is now working as a UX manager. Uh, Various, she also work in a different background also, and currently she is also founded uh, one platform which is called UX Pair, Pair UX, and she's a founder. And we will know more about what activities we do in a Pair UX and everything. So as today's our topic is very specific, that UXer needs a talent agents. Uh, Everybody want to become success in a career, and everybody is looking for a great opportunity. And in India also nowadays we work with overseas, and we work with multinational company. So I think that experience can get insight about how we can bring that experience into international. So that's why we have Nadia with us, and she will explain a lot of it. Okay. So if you have any questions during session, please use Zoom chat and start putting questions. And we end of the our discussion, we definitely will take a few questions. Obviously, it is related topic, and we try to get answer on that. Okay. Now, yes. I think Nadia, you are on mute. Just okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks for joining. I know it is Saturday morning, and and thanks for giving time for UX community. So before we move on our for today's discussion, as always said, everyone's journey is inspirational, and everyone should look for mentors and that's it. So just we can start with your journey and what you have done, and what is your inspiration, and what you are currently and what are obviously on for pair UX we are going to discuss later on. So yes, we can start.
Um, so I have an interesting background. I think a lot of people who start in UX come from either computer science or a design background. And before becoming a UX designer, I was a literary agent. So I helped authors sell their books to publishers. Um, and I got very good at storytelling. I got very good at pitching things and taking really complex ideas and kind of narrowing them down. And so when I was 25, I started my own literary agency and book packager. By 30, I retired myself and sold my portion of the company. And in my retirement, which only lasted like 6 months, mind you, I decided that I was going to build an app for my children. I have 5. I was going to build an app for them to monitor their chores and monetize them so that when they did their chores, they could use the bank of mom to take out some allowance. Uh, I designed everything in a PowerPoint and it was clickable and people could and I sent it to a developer who helped me build it. And I was so proud of it. I put it on LinkedIn and I got a call from State Farm and they saw my app and they said, "Hey, we'd like you to come here and help us gamify our support tools." And I said, "I can do that." I had no idea what I was going to do. But I am a believer in say yes and then figure it out. So I worked with State Farm and I was on site and helping them build out this huge, massive support tool platform. And I was still in PowerPoint and I was cutting and pasting little images in PowerPoint. And someone came over and was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "I'm just making something so everybody understands what it is we're trying to go for." And they were like a prototype. And I'm like, I had never even heard the word. So, when I was like, "Tell me more," definitely a UX reaction. And she actually showed me the UX industry. She told me what UX does, the tools that we use, the jobs that we do. And my mind was blown because obviously I had no knowledge of this coming into it. And I dove in right away. I got super excited. And because I didn't come from a design background and because I didn't come from a computer science background, I had to sort of re-pitch myself again as a storyteller. So I went into recruiters' offices and I pitched my story and they pitched my story on my behalf. I spent about 7 years doing contract work, things from 2-year-long engagements to 2-day-long engagements, depending on what the customer needed. But I learned, I think, 7 different software tools. I worked with over 20 different clients. I got to work in every single space, which was really amazing for me because I didn't know anything about the industry before starting. So I didn't know where I would find my best fit. And I think that's something a lot of younger UXers and sometimes UX transitioners are really looking for is like, where do I fit best? And contracting really helped me try pretty much every field. I really loved health tech, so I found and took a job at a startup that was in the health tech space, and they grew very quickly. They went public, and I decided that I was more interested in growing my career at another company. So I started looking for my next challenge. And that's when I started working with clients again personally, because I'm always looking for ways to challenge my skills and try and expand them. And the only way I know how to do that is by kind of forcing myself into it. Uh, and in the service of a client, it always makes sense to do that extra work. So I took a position as a UX manager at Calibrate. I support 2 apprentices in the UX field. One is a UX writer and the other one is a UX researcher. I love the field. I love talking about it. And I especially love talking about the business of UX. So totally game for all questions. I don't know if I'll have the answer to all of them though. I'll try.
Okay, great. I think that is very fascinating journey, and I think everybody who's are transitioning, a typical question is, I'm not a design background. How I can set my career in UX? I think you're ideal for those people. Not only you start learning, and even eventually, you are doing mentoring and everything. So that is great. Uh, Recently, I saw you were on ADP list also. So kudos for that. Great. Okay. Now, coming back to our topic, so that is for recruitment, as a UX professional, whenever they go for apply for a job, being from a non-designer, okay, and maybe you also face similar challenges.
Right.
So, what is difficulty? Why the young people they are coming into industry? What difficulties they are facing, or maybe what are challenges, and why they do not find any good positions. So, why it is hard
Right.
to get in such positions, right? What?
Absolutely. I think it's a really interesting question because I feel like a lot of companies are currently making money off people who want to get into UX design, right? We have boot camps and programs and consulting and coaches. And the problem is, and it's interesting because I always try to hire junior designers and sometimes I can't make it happen. And here's why. If we are trying to grow as a business, we have maybe spots for 3 people or 3 designers. And we know that we can either pay top dollar to get a person who already has the experience, who we can put into the role and can do the job, or we can hire someone who is junior who might stay longer, which is a benefit, but they also will have to learn the skills to complete that job. So if we hire the junior and I'm the other person, and that second person is a senior and they're doing their own work, it then becomes my job to support the junior, to teach the junior, to review the junior's work. And when you have, and I'm sure everybody on this call who has worked in UX knows, sometimes the workload is crazy and you don't necessarily have time to teach an apprentice at the same moment that you're trying to get your work done and over to engineers or over to PMs. So a lot of times it's a logistical nightmare to have junior designers come and work at your company because they take a lot of additional resources to make sure they get up to speed, that they can be comfortable and helpful and supported. So when I talk to junior designers that are having a really hard time finding their first position, the first thing I do is I ask them, why are you selling yourself as a junior designer? Like, why are you positioning yourself as a person who wants to go into the field? You're not someone who is looking for a favor from an employer. You're now a capable person with these skills that are going to bring that to the employer. And that's sort of the story that I always encourage UX professionals to tell, like what services and skills are they bringing? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. Uh,
Okay.
yes. Okay. But see, when you deal with junior people, and what are their questions, like, while as a recruitment, and so how you tackle this problem, because sometimes they don't know what they are getting into, right? What are challenges they are going to face?
Right.
And typical question, should I make a portfolio, or should I, how we can make it? So what is advice for that?
I think, just to go over the most asked questions I get, the first one is, do you think I can do this? Which I always think is really interesting because these are people who have spent time and resources and effort to really get into this industry, but they still want someone else to be like, do you think I can make it in this industry? The answer is always yes, but it's a lot of work. So that's when the other questions come in. The next question I always get is about the portfolio and resume. The problem with a lot of the junior design work is that it is not live. They haven't gone through the process of handing it off to engineers, answering engineer questions, making changes because an engineer has told them that something is impossible to build, showing it to stakeholders, which is, again, something that I don't think is on the radar of junior designers, but is in the back of the minds of hiring managers. So for that purpose, I usually tell my students, I teach a boot camp, and I tell my students, like, every project we do, we're going to do for a real client. We're going to get a client in the door so that way you can understand what it feels like, not only to manage a stakeholder, but to push back when a stakeholder is like, well, I want this. And you know that this is not the right answer. Like, how do you have that conversation? How do you kind of create a compromise? And those are the biggest skills that are missing from junior designers. So my first thing is always like, how can you get in front of real clients as quickly as possible as you're building your portfolio? The next question is obviously always about the portfolio. And it's interesting because I think a lot of people place a lot of emphasis on the resume and the portfolio. And my tips are always really simple. For your resume, keep it simple so that way it doesn't get kicked out of the machine that are checking to see what's going on. Keep your LinkedIn up to date. Make sure that the skills you have are actually listed on your LinkedIn page, because that's how recruiters are going to search and find you. And that's for internal recruiters or external recruiters. It's the same path. And I want people to kind of consider that their resume is almost like a business card. It's supposed to get the person who is probably not the hiring manager, probably does not have UX experience, but is on the recruiting side, to take a look at the list of skills and experience you have, see if it matches up with the hiring manager said they wanted, which is why it's a really good tactic to align your resume with the job description, because that's what the recruiters are looking for. And that might get you to the hiring manager. But the first thing the hiring manager is going to do after scanning your resume and confirming that their recruiter's not messing with their time, they're going to go to your portfolio and they're going to give it anywhere between 2 and 4 minutes. They're going to scan your materials and see if the skill set that you say you have in your resume is apparent in your experience and skills on your portfolio. So what I usually tell, again, new designers or even designers who are looking to upskill or shift into a higher role, is that your portfolio is not a way to, oh, did I blank out? Sorry, I'm going to pause for 1 sec.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It just,
Okay,
everything
okay.
paused for a second. I wanted to make sure I didn't lose everyone.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No.
I have 5 kids. They're probably all playing games and messing with the internet.
Okay. No.
So for your portfolio, I think it's really important to, one, showcase the skills that the hiring manager is looking for. And I don't think you need to create a new portfolio for every job that you apply to. But what you should do is, when you're starting to look for positions, find 20 or 30 jobs that seem really interesting to you, and then do your design process there. Like, you're going to research the jobs you would like. You're going to synthesize all the requirements and the descriptions that they use to describe the person they want to hire. You're going to break it down into the things that you find interesting, that you're passionate about, that you think you could do really well, and that you think you can really do well for that company. And then you create your resume and your cover letter templates based on that information. So when I started, I was actually going through a period where I really liked A/B testing everything. So I would send out 2 resumes, 2 cover letters, and I would switch one. So I can constantly see, like, am I getting worse or better? Worse or better? And I found some funny tips. Recruiters, if they're male, tend to respond to bullet points more than women do. Interesting. If you put the link to your resume so they can download it from your email, it was opened more often. And if you follow up on LinkedIn after you have applied for a position, it had I think it was like a 20% bump in response rate. So like you can actually use your UX design skills, your research skills, your content writing skills on your own professional life. And I totally recommend that. So getting back to the portfolio, you've done this work where you've synthesized all these jobs into the things that now you're like, yes, this is the type of job I want. This is what I'm passionate about, good at, and I can sell my story to fit that job. Now your portfolio, I want you to take like 2 or 3 projects that you really nailed that are pretty recent and that align to the things in your resume. More than that, what you're really doing is, and I'll give you a quick story. So as a hiring manager, I placed an ad for an internship, paid internship, but still an internship. And it was only an internship for 1 month. And it was for UX research. So I'm getting more and more specific. I posted it, and within 72 hours, I had over 100 applications. So I got online, I went into the hiring portal, and I immediately took out everybody who did not have UX research as their title first. So that was about half of them, because in my mind, if you are looking for UX research, I want the person who's most passionate and most committed to UX research. So if you're a UX designer, take UX research off your title, but keep it in your background, your skill set. If you're going for research, do not put UI designer on your title. Same thing. I'm looking for a commitment and a dedicated skill set. I'm not going to get that from a generalist. So I had these 100 applicants, and I had gone through and took out the people who didn't have the job title that I was searching for. And the next thing I did was I quickly would go through each applicant and see what the first sentence of their cover letter said. And then I would click into their portfolio, take a really quick look. And then I just bucketed people into, nope, not ready yet. Maybe this person is good and I have to take a closer look, and let's get this person in an interview now. And our candidates were so wide ranging. We had PhD level researchers applying for this internship role. And we had people who were just at a boot camp and really wanted to go into UI, but thought research might be a good way in applying to this role. So we really had our pick. And the person who I actually hired for the job is the only candidate who messaged me directly. The only one who reached out and said, hey, I really want this job. I'd love to talk to you more about it, see what your needs are. And okay, let me rephrase. He wasn't the only one who reached out. He was the only one who reached out a second time. So when he reached out a second time, I had been avoiding this huge list of candidates because I did not know how to pair through them. And when he reached out a second time, I said, let's have a chat. I found him to be very well spoken. He was very clear about what he was looking for and what he could bring to the table. He told me what his experience were very clearly, and he stepped me through his portfolio. And what I didn't tell him is that I was already sold on him from when he messaged me the second time, because if nothing else, 1, I knew he could write a good letter and can communicate, but 2, I also knew that if things got busy, if things got chaotic, he is able to motivate himself into doing work and wasn't just going to wait for his boss to hand him something. So it's interesting the way each hiring manager sort of looks for different characteristics to find in the people that they want to work with them. But what you want to do is not pretend to be something you're not, because you'll find out right away it's not a good fit. You want to be exactly who you are, be passionate about the things you're passionate about, and then learn how to express your story in the best way. And then you'll be able to find a really great fit, either with a hiring manager or a recruiter or a company in general. Long-winded answer.
Yes, but that is, I think, really a lot of takeaways in that. But finding a good position, that is always a challenge, because the example which you have taken is about internship. There are always a debate about whether it's a paid internship is good or free internship is good. The company which give us a free internship are bad. So a lot of on LinkedIn, day to day we saw that kind of a post, and but
Right.
not about only internship, but anyways, the different positions we expect, like a researcher, designer, or interaction designers. So how you plan for this, So I'm a very fresher, and
Yeah.
how I get a good position in my dream job, because everyone has a dream. I should work with this company. Maybe that could be a Google or Facebook or Amazon, and how to prepare for that kind for a good position.
I think there's a couple things that candidates could do to really kind of get in the door of the company that they really want to be in. First, I would actually suggest talking to people who work there. There are many different mentorship, especially for designers, a lot of different mentorship sites where you can go and find another person who's higher level than you, who has more experience, and you can ask them questions. I always recommend that people find a mentor in the company that they think they want to work in and ask those people about the path they took, look at their LinkedIn profiles. So that's my big thing, is whenever I'm applying for a job, I look at all the profiles I can find for other people in similar positions. And then I look at their backgrounds and I compare them to my own background, and I say, what's the gap here? What do I need to fill in? And that's actually how I started teaching a boot camp, because I was looking at people who are head of design, and 50% of them had either teaching or some type of public speaking experience on their resume. And I was like, I don't have that. I need to have some sort of way to show that I really love mentoring younger designers and I can actually walk them through the system. So I got a job as a bootcamp instructor, and that opened up a lot more doors for me professionally. So I think that when I'm telling younger designers to look at the gaps in their resume or in their experience, figure out the ways to plug those gaps, then you're almost automatically in line in the right direction. Another recommendation I have is, because look, recruiters are looking for you. They want to hire you. They get paid to hire you. They get bonuses if you come on quickly. Like, they want to find the right people for the right job. So your job then is to make sure that you are correctly expressing to the recruiters what job you are right for. I think one really amazing way to do that, and I have a mentee who I actually found on LinkedIn because he was posting such amazing content. He was posting exercises that he was designing on his own. He was learning motion graphics, so he would throw some of that in there. But he also was really strong in community. So he would message and leave great comments on other designers' work and say, like, keep up the good work. You're doing great. It's all going to work out. And I just found, one, the attitude's so perfect. The work was great. He had a great eye for design. Even though it was sort of in the infancy stage, I knew that he had a lot of possibility. And before he was a boot camp student, and before he even finished his boot camp, he had recruiters and hiring managers calling him because he had put his work out there and people were following. I wasn't the only one. Try to hire him, couldn't do it. I was very disappointed. But I think that, the combination of the networking, which is, I would say, geared towards mentorship relationships, learn from people, and then share what you're learning through a social media account. And I recommend LinkedIn because that's where recruiters are. And that synergy will really start beefing up your audience. I'll give you an example. About a year ago, I think I had about 1,200 followers on LinkedIn. So I did an experiment where for like 2 months, I posted a couple times a week, and I posted to what my audience is for other UX designers to kind of learn and grow the skills that I learned and hopefully grew from. And my audience probably, I think, tripled. We're at like 4,000 now. I received hundreds of messages, but I've also received 3 job offers, like without interviews. And it was funny because now hiring recruiters are looking so hard for the right talent that there's something called like sneaky interviews.
Mhm.
You'll get a message from someone being like, hey, I saw you post about this. I'd love to chat more about it. And you're about 30 minutes into a phone conversation before you realize it was actually an interview. And now you're interviewing for a job. But that won't happen for you if you're not putting content out there, if you're not sharing your experience in education with others. They won't know that you have it. So I think that that is probably the biggest first step that we can all take to kind of really jettison our careers in the right direction.
Right, I think correctly you said, you know, they have to come up, they have to post, use LinkedIn, I think better way, so that because recruiters should get noticed, they should, because every time they are looking for, and unfortunately they get the wrong candidates. So I think for freshers, they should become more active on LinkedIn.
Right.
Yes. So yes, audience, you start. If you have any questions, please on chat, start voting. So I have a couple of last questions, so we can move on. Okay. So what is your experience? You know, when you so it is globally you see same kind of a UXers, or it is specific? You know, when you deal with international hiring, or you hire for, or you work with your firm, right? So you get similar mindset. It is like confusion everywhere, UX, UI, and what is that?
If we're talking about like the division of how UX has just sort of exploded into all these little subspecialties. And I don't know if this has happened globally. I know that in the UK, they're not making as much as they are in US and Australia. They just haven't kind of hit the same numbers that we've had. But let's talk about different titles, right? You have product designer, the implication being that you are more UI focused and more focused on the product and not just the experience. But then you have user experience, which sometimes means designer, but sometimes means strategist, UX researcher, growth designer, which is now the UX designer who focuses almost specifically on getting and attracting new customers for a business. So when you're thinking onboarding flows, intake forms, website designs, that would be under growth. Then you have marketing UX, which is again sort of a subspecialty. You have UX producers, which is more design ops, and that's for people who are really interested in both project management and the design field. So that could be a really great fit. And then and there's more, there's so many more. There's IA designers, information architecture, or interaction designers, or motion designers. And everybody is using different titles and different job descriptions, which is why I always say, like, ignore the title, ignore the experience level that they say they're asking for. Go into the job description and look at the actual responsibilities. And even those are sometimes wrong, right? So even those, like, I started a job once where the person who was my new boss was not there when they wrote the job description that I got hired under. So by the time I started, I had a completely new job that I hadn't even interviewed for. So take everything with a grain of salt and be really comfortable with talking to the recruiter, the hiring manager, about what that job entails and what the expectations are. Because right now, with the market, if you come at it from a mindset that you're interviewing a company, like, you are bringing this skill probably for 1 or 2 years. Don't expect a lifetime career anywhere anymore, good and bad. But let's say you're going to apply the skills you've already learned in all your previous positions. You've been investing in your knowledge and your skill set for however many years, and you're going to apply it to one business theoretically. And they now have to sell you on why it should be their business. And the better you are, the harder they will try and sell you. So when we're like looking at trying to pick which job, I always kind of go back to the job description. And then I really want people to say, I am passionate about this and I'm good at this, and then focus there. And no matter what the title is, because I think, what is it? Microsoft calls it design 1, 2, 3, and 1 is the lowest and 3 is the highest. And then you have UX designer, strategist at Vanguard, which, what is a UX strategist? It's almost the same thing, but also nobody has a consistent label across this industry. So it's sort of hard to rely on it. Do you find the same thing?
Yeah, it's the same thing. Uh, but as I coming back to my question, so it is, you see this like worldwide same thing, or you see some, there is a weak, because as Nelson famously, you know, he's talking about more about UX maturities. So
Right.
this UX maturity is a problem for recruiter also, or it is just local, the candidate problem, you know, how they are bring maturity to the company, or their recruiters are also, uh, this UX maturity is going to be a problem in future for them, or it is as going now, less like 10 years, where also we are talking on same confusion every time. So what is your
I,
take on this?
I've worked at a company that had amazingly strong UX maturity, and I've worked at way many more that did not. And the distinction is really interesting. So with the company that had great UX maturity, it was a completely different working environment. Product, we were under product, but the process for which they used UX was generative research fed into what the vision for the next strategic year would look like. Like, so we were at the table at the very beginning of the conversation. And then once we got to prioritizing things on the ticket level, we were putting items in the backlog for PMs. We were able to advocate for our users to the VP level. And I think the very next position I took, my boss told me, quote unquote, they would call me when they needed it to be prettier. So like, that is like the range of what you can see there. So when you're looking at a position, and again, like something with a strong UX maturity, you will have designers that are at a higher level than you, most likely. And those are going to be the people who change your career path. I worked with a woman at a former company who was so mean to me. she would look at my designs and tear them apart. She would be like, why are you breaking patterns here? Why are you using this color? Why is this text so long? But I learned so much and evolved so much because the maturity of that organization supported me as a younger designer there. But at the less mature stage, it's usually they're a startup, usually they're growing really fast, or they don't really know what UX is. And then a lot of your time is going to be spent not only educating people, but also kind of managing stakeholders' expectations, in which case the skill set is much different, right? The skill set for a beginning designer there is like, you probably want to be a little bit older. You probably want to be a little bit more confident. You want to make sure that you're not going to get bowled over when stakeholders come at you, which happens all the time. You want to be able to like hold your ground firm and be able to argue politely and respectfully. Whereas in a more mature organization, you want to be willing to learn, willing to do kind of production work, which for designers is going through and doing QA, making sure that everything is aligned correctly, looking into what the design system is and how things are going off track. So you'll do a lot of like newbie work, but that's the stuff that really sets you up for every other job you're going to have after that. Did I answer that question? I feel like I talked, but I'm not sure.
No, it's correct. Yeah, I think such topic are endlessly we can discuss. Okay. Anyways, I'm just again, if you have any question, please put on a chat so we can take. Okay. So from my side, this is the last question. Okay. So let's talk about your, what is you are now what you are doing the current activity, the pair UX. So
Yeah.
how it comes and what are what you become, because this I'm not I've gone through your website, everything. It's not a typical recruitment thing. So it is very,
Right.
you are doing very, very unique for UXers. So just share your that thing to audience. Maybe they can take benefit of it, you know. And there are
Yeah.
a lot of young people, they are want to go overseas to work and everything. So maybe that some way they can help you.
Awesome. So I actually started Pair UX just a few months ago, and we're officially launching on the 22nd, a couple days. So what the idea is that I believe that the skills that make you an amazing UX designer do not make you amazing at negotiating your contracts. They don't make you super amazing at uh, finding the best job for you. And they don't make you super amazing at coming back to someone and saying, no, I need $30,000 more to take this job. Those are things that I've noticed that even the best designers have a hard time with, and that usually keeps them in a position or a job where they're not learning and they're not growing as much as they could be, and they're definitely not making as much as they could. So Pair is, it started as a way for me to figure out how to bring junior designers in. The word pair means two. So it's a junior designer and a more senior designer. And what we do is we pair up junior clients with a paid for mentor who works with them on a weekly basis. And we find them jobs to beef up their resume for the first 3 years of their career. After, for professionals that have more than 3 years of experience, we represent them to employers. So we are not paid by the employer like most recruiters are. Most recruiters are fiscally responsible and aligned with an employer because the employer is paying them to find the best person for the position. My job is not to find someone great for the employer. My job is to find a great employer for my client. So that means I can bring multiple offers from multiple people. I can talk to hiring managers personally and find out what the pay scales are looking like. And that's a little bit more similar to what happens with recruiters, but a recruiter can't tell you not to take a position. They can't say, actually, this job is crap, and I know they offered someone else $10,000 more 2 days ago. They can't tell you that because that's actually illegal when they're working for the employer. Working for the UX professional, I can do that. So we are working with UX professionals, supporting them with their careers, helping them upskill, providing them with coaching and with mentorship. And I'm really stopping sort of at senior designers right now. And what was interesting to me is I thought, oh, and we get paid by the designer, the practitioner as well. We get paid every time they get paid, we get a percentage directly from the company out of their paycheck. So I thought this would be sort of the perfect thing for junior designers because like 0% of 0 is nothing. So if I got them a job, it seems like I was like, oh, junior designers are going to hop all over this. Not a one has messaged me about this, which is interesting. I've had so many calls with senior designers who were like, this is amazing. I think I've been in my job too long. I want to go and look for something in a different industry, but I don't want to go through the whole process of going through 6 interviews for every company. So like our whole tagline is, you know, imagine never having to interview again. Imagine like we do the selling for you, you go in and meet with a manager, make sure you all can work together, but that would be the limit of how invested in time and resources you'd have to be in the interview. So it's been really interesting that a lot more senior designers have been seeking me out when I was sort of prepping for all junior designers. So now we're sort of scrambling because our user persona has changed. But that's, you know, the point of doing these little beta tests and these pilots,
Right.
exactly like any kind of design cycle.
Great. I think that is a unique recruitment process you are introducing, I think. And for UXers, a UX professional is definitely because they have very typical mindset, to apply somewhere, wait for interviews. And as you said,
Right.
in one company, they have to wait for 6 interviews and taste and everything. So I hope this idea will work and all the best for this thing. Uh, Definitely. I think there are no questions, surprisingly. I think we have covered everything, surprisingly. Great. So, yeah, once again, thanks for joining. Thanks for giving your time for Saturday weekend session. I
Right.
know you must be your morning must be very chaotic with your kids and everything.
I'm
So,
surprised you can't hear them because in the background I like shut the door. I was like, okay.
okay,
Um,
great. But what you are doing is very fantastic, and I hope in future uh, we can have some kind of a sessions more, and hopefully Indian audience is will connect you somewhere, and we can continue. I also okay. There is one question. Let's take. Okay.
thank
So Nilam is asking, while preparing for portfolio or a project, how to conduct research, how to look for real users. Do we need to look for real users while doing our first project for portfolio? So,
you. Good questions. I'm gonna split them up and only answer one at a time. So while preparing for portfolio, how to conduct research. Uh, Interesting. So I think the question is, if you're working on a project, how do you conduct research for that project or just for how to prepare your portfolio? I'll answer both. So for the first one, when I'm looking to conduct research on a project, what I do is I start by listing all the questions that I have. Then I go into Google and I quickly search for the keywords that have come either from PMs that I've heard other people use, that I've talked to stakeholders and they said, well, this is what we think is going on. And I look at all the questions that other people are asking. You know how Google says it shows the top 5 or 6 questions? I dig into that. I'm a big desk research person, which means I love Googling. And I usually start there so I could get a really good summation of what I need to do research wise with my users and then go into that direction. In preparation of a portfolio, I go back to the job descriptions that I'm trying to get. I go into specific industries and I look not only at what people on Medium are posting, which is a really great site because a lot of people use that for their portfolios. So you can see case studies, you can see other information that's really helpful. And then I start kind of pulling together the best I've seen and start taking little bits of it for my own portfolio. So you can't copy, but you can definitely take amazing features from across many portfolios and integrate them hopefully seamlessly into your own experience. Real users, good question again. Recruiting for research is probably the hardest part of doing research. So I suggest starting on LinkedIn groups and Facebook groups and Instagram hashtags, because you can quickly search for a topic or a keyword and find groups related to that. Enter gently, make sure you ask whoever's in charge if you can post a question. And then usually I do a screener interview where I'm taking them out of the site, the social media platform that they're on, and I ask them a couple questions to learn a little bit more about them, and then dive in deeper with the people who kind of fit my screener. So if I'm looking for someone who's 40, female, went to college, and has 2 cars and 4 kids, like I would construct my screener to show me which of the people who answered fit that. Do we need to look for real users while doing our first project for portfolio? Here's what the hiring manager is going to say. The first question they're going to ask is, what work did you do on this project that you're showing me? What was your role? If your role was, I was one of 6 designers who were working on it as part of a class, that is very different from, I had this idea and I went and did the research for my own app. I built it in no code. I put it in front of users and tested it. And then I launched it on the Apple Store and here's the feedback I'm getting, it's a totally different story. The skills and experiences and background that you get from one are going to be completely different from the other. So maybe not your first project, but I would totally recommend doing it for your second. And I still do it. Every time I'm looking for a job that's sort of outside of the skill set that I currently have, and I want to kind of go into something new, I build my own software to show my design, my expertise, my ability to code, my ability to test, and my ability to see if something is usable or not. And I use that as part of not only my personal portfolio, but sort of my marketing as well.
Great. I think it's a great answer for that. Okay. So, okay, quickly, any question or just we can wrap now? I think I don't want to take your lot of morning time here. Once again, thanks everyone. Thanks for joining. Do connect with Nadia. She is very much active on the LinkedIn and
Yep.
on and ADP also. Yeah. So let's connect. I think I have shared Pair UX URL on a chat. So please go through that, and maybe you have any questions. You can connect with and you can ask her question directly. Okay, thanks once again. So next UX talk it is very interesting. I'm doing that UX talk, so I'm the speaker. So topic is very different. So topic is UX is not like two things you are friend. Very controversial topic I'm going to discuss. So stay tuned for that, and let's connect for UX next session. Thanks, Nadia, once again for your valuable time, and let's hope
Thanks so
we
much for
connect
having
somewhere.
me.
Thanks. Okay, have a great
Bye,
day.
everybody. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.